Muted again. Welcome everyone to the 47th episode of the LIBERcast. And I want to thank everyone first, express my gratitude for everybody who was involved, who was there, the previous guest. Thank you very much, everyone. The people who are always there. I'm thinking about Sophie and Elena, and all these beautiful people we have around. my good friend Jim. So thank you for people for being there. And tonight we're gonna have a awesome conversation about the runes and symbolism. And I mean, it's all gonna be new for me. So it's all about learning and knowledge and growing from that. And I want to acknowledge Caroline Riley webpage and shadow work community. And Caroline Riley is a shadow worker, and her page is filled with helpful advices and thoughts and things like that to help you to start your shadow work or to go further into it. And I suggest everyone to go see there and what she has to offer, and then grow up and go forth, people. And so thank you, Caroline. Appreciate it. So welcome, Logan. Thank you for being there, brother.
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here.
I mean, it's a very do you want to talk a little bit about your path and where we can get your work?
Sure. So I am a student and teacher of natural law. I am a pagan, a syncretist, a seeker of truth, first and foremost. I'm the creator of a platform called the Wizard Factory. We're live on there now, but we're co-streaming. So anyone outside, come check out the Wizard Factory. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Odyssey as well. Those are the main ones. You can find my link tree on the web page or just go to thewizardfactory.com, and all the links are there as well. So in a nutshell, the Wizard Factory is all about sharing the tools and mindsets to live a more empowered life, and that's primarily through occulted knowledge of self and the universe, natural law, paganism, and psychology, things like the runes. Just any tool that's actually practical and useful and leads to the expansion and evolution of consciousness.
And I know you're a musician. You're playing guitar, actually, and that's good. I like this is a good form of expression. I'm more of a drummer. I'm more a percussionist, but I think, I mean, everybody have his own instrument and the way to express these emotions and this passion with people. good. It's a very good place to start. Um, so let's dive into it. I'm
Sure.
very curious, very excited for that. So here we go.
Absolutely. Yeah, the runes are an absolutely amazing tool. I mean, it's many things, right? People might think of it as an alphabet, um, which it is that, but it's so much more than that, and it's probably much more ancient than people know, even according to academic history. I think they're some of the oldest, you know, knowledge. It's a system. It's essentially a shamanic initiation system. So what they are, these runes, they're primordial sacred seed sounds. They're not just mere symbols, they are the embodiment of cosmic forces. In a way, it's almost like a pantheon. It's these cosmic archetypes and forces that are at work that, some have anthropomorphized and given names like Thor and Zeus and things like that. The runes are very much in a similar fashion. And it's only by building a personal, direct relationship with them as a whole and individually that we begin to really fully tap into their power. It's one thing to kind of study academically, intellectualize it. It's a whole other thing to actually work with them. So that's what I'm all about. And I began that journey about 2.5 or so years ago, give or take. And it's always, I mean, I still consider myself kind of a beginner, to be honest with you, but that's just because there's so much depth to be continued to, and again, you can read books all you want, but it's about a lifelong relationship with each rune and the powers that they can bring and how they, and different ways they can be used as well.
Do you consider as a form of tarot? Is it can it be comparative?
Absolutely. In fact, they can be used in conjunction with each other. I think that, and this is a direction that I see myself going in the years to come. But as I'm such a beginner, there's just so much to tap into. But I would love to develop deeper understanding of not only the runes but tarot and astrology, and these sciences can be very much used together. There's a lot, as I said in the beginning, I'm a syncretist. I'm all about finding the grains of truth that are persistent across different approaches, different perspectives, and it might have a different name, it might have a card or a stone or a sign in the sky, but these archetypes, these forces are just there, and they can be observed through many different ways, and again overlaid with each other. So absolutely, there's a lot of cards in the tarot that will be reminiscent of some of these runes and vice versa.
Where the ones that the image that you sent me that I used for a poster from what people, what were the people who used them?
The Norse, the Germanic tribes, Proto-European, Indo-European cultures, predates, yeah, like the Hindu culture. I think that the Hindu and the Germanic have common ancestors, and that there's a lot of overlap as well. If you really study kind of both sides, you could compare the runes to, say, like the mantras and the ashkaras of Hinduism. Again, it's about those kind of sacred seed sounds that are the creative forces as well. It's said that the universe was spoken into existence, that everything is sound, and thinks in terms of, as Tesla said, in terms of sound, frequency, and vibration. This really is the universal language. uh, and as you even mentioned earlier with the music, being a musician as well, I have a deep connection to sound and vibration. So that's really a good way to look at it.
And just to mention, Logan is actually the writer of the music that was used for Was it Funnel you did? Just to refresh my memory.
Well, yeah, there were some
That's
tracks.
a Convergence, I think.
Yeah,
Is it?
Funnel to the Convergence.
Yeah.
Will, who is one of the organizers, he selected a few of my songs as the part of the soundtrack. There were actually quite a few very talented artists that were pulled from on that, but the tracks that were featured on there were actually tracks that were from the soundtrack from Mark Passio's Natural Law documentary, which I composed the entire soundtrack custom for that. That's some of my favorite stuff that I've ever done by far. So definitely very proud of that.
Can we listen to your stuff on YouTube, or a place that we can listen to your stuff?
Yeah, actually, so I've got all of those songs up on YouTube on my other channel that's not the Wizard Factory. It's called Heartfire Visions. So you can just search YouTube for Heartfire Visions, and that's where I kind of put my more creative and musical and other kind of stuff, and also recently put my music up on Spotify, so you can find that entire album there as well as some of my older stuff too, but primarily electronic stuff. I do a lot of different kind of stuff, but composing, producing electronic music's always kind of been my main thing.
It's way easier.
Yeah, I mean, when you're using synthesizers and drum machines, you just have so much versatility at your fingertips, so many different sounds, and you can tweak and modify the sounds in so many different ways. There's just a lot you can do with it. It's a very powerful all-in-one song compositional and producing tool.
We have a question from the people who are listening.
Okay,
How do you know how to pronounce the sound of the runes?
that's a great question, and there's actually a lot of different ways to pronounce things. You can say it one way, and then somebody will put in the comments that that you pronounced it wrong. At the end of the day, these were an oral tradition first. I believe that they were just sounds first, and that the alphabet was developed later. So who knows how they actually said things, tens of thousands of years ago. And so I have a way of pronouncing things just based on how I learned, and maybe I'm saying stuff wrong. It's hard to know for sure, but again, it's about just building that personal relationship and doing what works for you.
So can you give us some examples of runes?
Absolutely. Well, my intention was to kind of go through each of them just at a very basic level. It won't take too long. There's 24 in total. So, they're actually typically divided into three sets of 8. And one way to look at this, again, as I said early on, you can look at these as a shamanic initiation. So each phase of the first, the second, and the third 8 kind of deal with a different layer or a different aspect of this initiation. So the first 8 would be the physical, the second will be the mental, and the third would be the spiritual. And of course, just like with anything, and you're drawing lines, lines are somewhat arbitrary, and there's always crossover. There's spiritual aspects to all of them. There's physical and mental and all of that. But this is just one way to look at that. And again, if you're thinking back into, like Ice Age Europe, way back in the day, very primitive times, this was the rite of passage. This was like the rite of manhood and that sort of thing, because typically it was men that worked with runes, and women had their own system called Seidr. So Galder is like chanting of the runes, and that's kind of, again, it's sounds. Like, you can look at the symbols, but they're just pointers to the sounds. So so the first 8 again, are the physical. I guess I can go ahead and share my screen here.
So if everybody has a question or comment, I mean, I think it's fair now. There's people that come from your side, and it is the same. You comment, you have your questions. We're gonna take the time to answer them.
Yes, this is a discussion as much as a presentation. We want to, hear from you guys, and we appreciate the engagement as well. Also, make sure you like the video, share it with your friends, and, all that good stuff really helps out the channel.
So
All right.
I'm having tomorrow. I'm having François Chartrand for the English podcast about Urantia. So I suggest everybody to tune in tomorrow for that. It's gonna be awesome. Here we go. See who's there tonight. Sophie, Hélène, Odysseus tonight. Tuned up. He leave the message. Welcome, people. Let me see.
There we go. Cool. I was frozen there for a second, I think.
No problem.
So I guess let's just get into it, right? So this is the first rune. This is ᴑᴜ. It represents, wealth is one way of looking at it, not just financial. Actually, there's another rune that's more to do with money. ᴑᴜ is more about physical, resources, materials. Because again, think about this in terms of an initiation and in a very survival-oriented world. You have to get your basics down first. So without resources, you're not going to get very far at all, right? So that's the very first rune, is just kind of like, what are the resources, even the powers at your disposal? And this is where the word fee comes from. ᴑᴜ is fee, and it's referring to basically the cattle. Back in the day, cattle was money. It was kind of the medium of exchange, because the cow, the ancient cows, had everything we needed for survival. Skin for clothing, meat, bones for tools and weapons, all that kind of stuff. This one is called ᴠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ. And so this is one you'll notice in most of these, they end, a lot of them end with a Z. And you could either say uruz or uruj. I was taught uruj, so that's just how I say it. And this one is, it translates to alrox or ox, like it's an ancient cow that's actually extinct now, but it was massive bull, basically. And you can think of it kind of as the earth energy. It's like the Taurus, it's very grounded. It's extremely powerful. It's that sort of like primal power of a bull, and grounded. Like when a bull is about to charge, he, kind of digs his feet into the earth to get his footing and charges forward. So this is like, strength, groundedness, power, and can also be sexual vigor as well. This is one of my favorite runes, ᴠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ. And this is the rune of Thor, as you can see, ᴠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ. And it also kind of looks like a thorn, right? And that's where that word comes from, Thor, thorn, as well. Thor is one of those, we gave him a name and this persona, but it's the electromagnetic force. And this is where boundaries come from. When you touch your fingers together, matter's not actually ever touching. It's just being repelled by this electromagnetic force. So it's the very essence of your boundaries. And just like a thorn, a thorn is there to protect the boundaries of the rose. And it doesn't go around attacking people. It only pricks you if you're encroaching on its boundaries, right? It also translates to giant, which represents the ego. And Thor was always off in the Jotunheim, which Jotun means giant as well. And that's where, so he's like the higher awareness, the divinity that's battling the ego, keeping it at bay. Dream Awaken is asking about mantras or meditation, and yes, actually, I was planning on, once I go through these, I was going to talk about some ways that you can actually start using and practicing. So this one is called Ansuj, and it translates to cool. It translates to mouth or speech. It's associated with like not just speech but divine, the language of the gods, and it's indicative that language itself is, and the ability to speak is extremely divine. It's a special power that we have. And so it represents communication, communion, and the power of speech. This one is Raido. This is essentially, it means right or ride, which I love language and how there's all these parallels, because especially anyone who studies natural law will know that right means not only what is correct, but also what is moral. And you'll also think of right, if you spell it RITE, is like a rite of passage or a ritual. These words are all interrelated, because a ritual is simply using and calling on the natural laws. You're creating something via the natural laws. So this is essentially to do with the right path. That's why you're riding the right path, based in truth, alignment with natural law. This is Kinaj, which translates to torch, but it also means knowledge. And I love this one because there's actually 3 connotations to knowledge, or there's basically, there's knowledge in terms of the understanding of it. There's the ability in terms of competence, and then there's the right or authorization. So when you're doing something, you need all 3 of those things in order to be successful at it. You need the knowledge of how it works. You need the ability, like, right, you could know how to drive a car, but if you don't have arms and legs, then you don't have the ability to do it. And then the right or the authorization, in other words, is this your car? Like, do you own the keys, or did someone give you the keys? That kind of thing. And again, torch is synonymous with knowledge. It's like the Promethean flame of knowledge, right? So being a lover of words, it's one thing that I really connect with the runes about, because there's all these like little interconnected, and you kind of tweak this or that, and you'll find parallels with other words, or you'll say, oh, that's where that came from, that kind of thing. And remember, a lot of the English language comes from Germanic origin as well. This one is Gebo, which translates to gift. And this is all about energy exchange. As you see, it's like an X. So you've got an exchange, a crossing of energies. And the Germanic people were very, according to historical accounts, very generous. If someone came to your home and needed shelter or whatever, it was just customary to help help people out. And not only that, but give them a gift. If you were hosting, you would just offer them something from their home, but then they would also want you to give something in return. Not, it's just that sort of like, this is a natural law of the universe, is, everything is giving and receiving, in terms of like the bees, they take pollen, but then they're spreading that, and you know what I'm saying, like the interconnectedness, and everything is just all this soup of like energy being exchanged in different kind of ways. And then of course you can even observe some animals are parasitic and others are symbiotic.
Yeah, and I think it's fascinating. This, you keep on bringing natural law, and I think it's very valid. I'm listening to you, and you're talking about mentalism and correspondence and things like
Yes,
the rhythm and things like that. It's very fascinating.
absolutely. This is 100% a different kind of way to study natural law, and it's all there. People understood this, like the ancients. They were not primitive, they were actually incredibly spiritually advanced. This one is Wunjo. This translates to joy, and not just not like an entertained or like a mindless joy. This is a joy that comes from true fulfillment, from being on the right path, from having community, things like that. And this is the final of the first 8. So this is almost kind of like the reward for mastering the first set of 8. Then you get the joy of being competent in your own survival, your ability to operate in the world, meet your own needs, be a part of society, of a tribe, of a community. So that's the first 8 right there. How's everyone liking this? Are you, is this making sense? Do you resonate? Give us a like down below as well, and drop some comments or questions. Let us know how we're doing. Appreciate you tuning in. We're very grateful to have you here as well with us. Yes, someone said reciprocity. That's another perfect word for law of Gabo. And, very much at play when it comes to interpersonal relationships. Keeping in mind the give and take there.
I just want to say a little hello to Derek. Hey,
What's
I
up,
know
man?
you're there.
We see you.
Good evening, man. Yeah.
Word. All right, so moving on. This is Hagalaj. This is the first of the second set of 8. So, this one, some might say, is a malefic rune, a negative rune, so to speak. But that's one thing about, to me, the pagan mindset, is you see everything as kind of part of the greater whole. And, you see challenges as opportunity for growth. You don't see everything so black and white, good and bad. Obviously good and evil, and moral good and right and wrong do exist, but though that's a very small exception, most things are more relative, and like a gradient. So, and it's all about perspective, right? You could see, so Hagalaj, it translates to hail or hailstorm. So one might see a hailstorm as negative, right? It's destructive, it's powerful, it's scary, and it is those things. But what it does is it sterilizes, and it purifies and cleanses things out. And even though the hail might destroy things when it's coming down and it's in that harsh, hardened form, eventually that ice melts and will water the earth, and things will regrow. And maybe the things that were destroyed were things that needed to be destroyed to facilitate growth, healing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the natural order.
Exactly. Yes. Death, rebirth,
Yeah.
order and
Generative.
chaos.
Regeneration, generation.
Exactly. Rejuvenation. That's another good word for this one. This is ᛏᚠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ. And I really love this one because if you've ever heard the phrase, necessity is the mother of invention, that's this rune right here. It literally translates to need. So, it's about necessity. It's about finding new ways to solve a problem, survival, invention, innovation. When there's a problem, when there's hardship, that's pressing on you to use your mind, to use your creativity to come up with some kind of new solution. And that's how essentially all of the wonders that have been created since the beginning of mankind have come about, even to the very advent of fire itself. Fire is a game changer, and it's because we were freezing to death and we needed the light to keep us warm, to keep predators away, and all the benefits that come with that.
Seeing in darkness, I think it was one of the first. Yeah,
absolutely. This one is Isa, and it looks like an eye, and it actually translates to icicle or ice. So it is the eye. It's the I, I, me, I. It's the icicle. It's like an individual. It's a unit, but it's pure. It's transparent, so that the light of the sun of your soul can shine through it. It's been cleansed of that. It's not murky where it's just like it's not a mudsicle, right? And this is all about essentially having a healthy sense of self, integrating, where you're healthily individualistic, but still letting the light of the all shine through.
is it alchemical in nature?
Yeah, you could say that, because to achieve that state, you definitely have to undergo the alchemical process for sure. Then we have Yira. This translates to year or gear. So there's another really fun, interesting kind of word connection. Like, think about the years as, or even like a year is just the movement of the cosmos, right? I always think of, if anyone's seen The Dark Crystal, the Agra has this mechanized model of the universe, and everything's moving, and it's gears, right? It's all these pieces that kind of work together, clink, clink, clink. And that's what this is all about, is like the cycles. It's about relationships, how pieces work together in the grand movements of things. So relationships, cycles, seasons, the year.
Fantastic movie, by the way.
Absolutely.
I like it very much.
Yeah.
All the let's talk a little bit about this.
Modern mythology right there. That's what I call it.
I mean, is the what's the name of the witch?
Agra.
The astronomers, because she's an astronomers.
Agra.
Agra, and she had, for the people who haven't seen the movie, there's plenty of symbolism in these movies. It's mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
This woman have an eye in the middle of the forehead.
Yeah.
Crazy, and I don't want to spoil, but there's a beautiful metaphor about the occult in this movie, between the light and the darkness. And I suggest everyone to see. It's dark. The movie, it's called Dark Crystal. It's very good, very good.
There's also a series too. I don't know. Have you seen that, Fred?
A little bit. I'm not a series kind of person. I like one shot movie.
Well, just think of it as a 10-hour movie.
Yeah, I've seen like one or two episodes. I didn't got into it that much, but the movie is very good.
Yeah, maybe give that another chance because I think it's every bit as good as the movie.
I
It's
I will.
very well done.
I'm gonna consider it.
Okay, cool. All right, so moving on, we have Iwaj or Uwaj. This, it translates to the yew tree, which is an old, well, you could say kind of a shamanic tree. There's a lot of like spiritual symbolism in many cultures regarding this one. And if you look here, so this would be like the stalk or the stem of the tree. And then if you look at a yew tree, YEW, you can Google it. You'll see that the branches will grow down into the ground and become part of the root system, and the roots will come up out of the ground. So it's this very like as above, so below is one way of viewing this one. Death and rebirth, transformation. You can sit under this tree, and it will emit these toxins that will actually create a psychedelic or entheogen experience for you. So again, this is why it was kind of a shamanic symbol. And when you're going through that, you might feel like you're dying, but you're also being reborn as a new self. So this is, again, death and rebirth and transformation.
It would be a good symbols for shadow working.
Mhm. Absolutely. Dying unto yourself. This one is Perthro, which is the lot cup. If you look, it's kind of like a cup on its side, like to throw dice. And, the lot, if you have a lot in life, that's sort of your dharma, or what the Germanic or the Norse people called orlog, which translates to origin law. So it's like the law of why you incarnated here, your agreement, your, kind of your dharma, like I said. So that's what this one is all about, your soul path, your orlog, and the good fortune or the luck that comes from pursuing your soul desire. This one is alges or alchis, which is translated to elk. So elchis, the elk was another very powerful. I mean, think about like the reindeer. It also has a very shamanic connotation. And if you look here, it's kind of like the antlers, which I also see it as kind of like what an antenna looks like. You remember those old antennas people would put on top of their houses? It's kind of like that in terms of it's a conduit of energy, and it's also to do with protection, like the antlers. They're there for protection. So again, protection, harnessing, and projecting power. That's what alges is all about.
And this symbol can be reverted. I think is this an inversion of the symbol? Because it looks like familiar.
If you invert it, it's like the peace sign, I think, if you put a circle around it.
Probably. Oh, that's
But
rare.
I guess I can mention now each of these. Well, actually, there's some that if you turn them upside down, like Isa, which is just the line, it's the same both ways. But for most of the runes, there's something called Merkstav, which basically means inverted. So if you're doing a rune reading or a spread, and in one lays down upside down, it's the same as like an inverted tarot card. So it has that inverted meaning. So,
Interesting.
right. So for example, if you drew this one, Merkstav, where this would mean, a conduit of energy or protection, Merkstav or inversion could mean, you're vulnerable, or that you have blockages towards that harnessing of energy. This one is Sowilo, which means sun or soul, which is one and the same, right? Soul, Soul, is the same as Sol, which is Spanish for sun. This is your internal, your pure being, right? Your soul. This is your solar plexus right here. And this is kind of like the internal sun. There's another rune later that is more like the external projection of this, but this is like your core essence, your very being, your soul. Here's ᛏᚠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ. This one is associated with the god of Tyr. And you can see it's kind of like a T, and it's also like an arrow, which is very masculine, almost phallic. So there's definitely a very masculine energy about this one. It essentially means like victory. Tyr is actually one of the oldest deities in history. It could be said Tyr, there's like a Tyr was Tyr. So Zeus, Zeus, there's like all these different kind of parallels towards other gods. Was like he was Father Sky. And he was the one that in the Norse mythology defeated the great wolf of Fenrir by sticking his arm and sacrificing his arm in the jaws of this wolf. And so it's like sacrifice. It's about keeping evil at bay and, being victorious over the darkness. This one is Barkano, which it translates to birch, which is a tree. This tree was used traditionally as a cleansing. It was used to create brooms. First of all, this is where like the witch broom comes from. And what is a broom but it's an instrument of cleaning. So Barkano is all about cleansing, cleaning, spring cleaning, right? What do we do in springtime? It's like new birth, new life. Everything's coming back from the dead, and we clean everything out, right? We get rid of all that dead, stagnant energy, sweep it out, and bring in the new. So birch is also one of the first trees to spring, to bloom in spring. So this is all representative of this rune here. This one is ᛏᚠᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗᚗ, which translates to horse. This is could be associated with Sleipnir, which was Odin's 8-legged horse. And horses have always had a very long, deep connection with humans, almost like a psychic connection, right? I mean, I don't know if you have much experience riding horses, but if you have a horse that you have a deep bond with, you can almost control where you're going when you're riding them, just with where you want to go in your mind. You don't even have to give any cues or pull the reins. It's like there's just this kind of unification that happens. And so this is kind of like, being in touch with your intuition, your higher knowledge, divine knowledge, and, knowing the correct path, right? Where you're riding to. This here's another one of my favorites, manaj, which translates to man, mind, and moon. These are all the same word. In fact, that's where human comes from. Human, and so when women, should I say feminists, talk about, how the word mankind is sexist. No, it's not. That's just demonstrating your utter lack of knowledge of history and where these words come from. Man is essentially the God mind or the divine mind. That's why, again, the moon in astrology represents the mind. It's emotions, but not just that. It's really just your mental construct, right? And so much like the moon reflects the light of the sun, to be a true man is to reflect the light of your own soul, where your mind is reflecting the light of your own soul. It's deep, man. I love this one. Very beautiful symbolism. Someone says the runes are complicated to understand, but very fascinating. Yes, and I fully agree. It's like they're simple on their surface, but you can just keep going deeper, and that's why I can't stress enough. I'm going to say all the way through. It's you can study them, but until you start working with them personally, that's when you really start unlocking deeper understandings and being able to kind of harness their power for yourself. So here we have Laguj, and this one, it translates to lake, and anyone relatively initiated into occult symbolism knows that water is very much related to emotions, deep emotions. So, deep, dark waters, the subconscious and the unconscious mind, the well and the lake, Loch. That's, there's the Celtic word Loch, like Loch Ness. That's where this comes from. So say, for example, if you were feeling like some emotional blockage and you want to dive into that, or you're dealing with some difficult emotions that you want clarity with, this would be a rune to work with, because it's going to draw that energy. And it's like when you have a body of water and you stir it up, it's going to bring all the muck that's settled on the bottom up to the surface. And that's the only way we're able to deal with things, right? Not when they're buried, but when they're brought forth. And we're getting towards the end here. This one is Ingwaj. This translates to fire, but specifically the internal fire. So pyre would be regular fire or external fire. That's where fire, the word fire, pyre, comes from, as well as like pyramid would be the fire in the middle, pyramid. And this is more like the sacred and eternal and internal flame. You also might notice, again, it's like kind of these, it's like a spiral, almost like DNA, but you could also look at it as Kundalini energy. Also, it's like when I say the depth just never stops, you could just continue to go deeper. You can learn each of these individually and have that basic understanding, but then you start breaking them apart. What is this but 2 Kinaj runes? Right? So 2 individuals maybe that have knowledge of self, because if you're going to have a deep spiritual relationship, and especially sexually join with somebody, you want that deep knowledge of self first before you're going into like connecting that deeply with someone else. So that Kinaj, is kind of embedded right there. But it's associated with Ingunnar, which is another Norse deity, which Ingunnar Frey means the master of fire. So to become like Ingunnar Frey, you are becoming the master of your own internal flame. And, again, like Kundalini energy, right? You learn how to work with it, transmute it, not letting it run you.
Awesome stuff. And I mean, it gives me the very interesting, and I want to look deeper into that. There are some symbols that are resonating with me, actually. So it's very interesting. Everything in the symbolism is very interesting. And I mean, you think these symbols are used everywhere,
Oh,
I
yes.
know I've seen them in movies and music and everywhere can be used,
Yeah, absolutely. And as with any symbolism, they're very much like that. They're used all the time, and most people are unaware of them, but they're still affecting your psychology. And a very interesting aspect of this that a lot of people don't realize is that the Third Reich, the Weimar Republic, they utilize the runes in a lot of their propaganda, their flags and sigils and things like that, which I believe was dark occult or dark magical practice of essentially leveraging and manipulating the ancestral trauma, because the Norse people were eradicated by Christians or converted. It was all very traumatic, intergenerational trauma. And I believe that's a lot of what they used, like a energy harvesting fashion, to bring about the events of Nazi Germany and etc., as they were tapping into that ancestral trauma, intergenerational trauma, through these symbols. And even many of the those German people were not aware of it.
I mean, there's so much stuff, so much information that we barely understand.
Mm-hmm.
About our ancestry, and how different the culture was at this time. The context of their lives. They were not like, they didn't have cars. They didn't have uh, all these things that we take for granted. They had to conserve this knowledge with the knowledge of the elders, and they
Mm-hmm.
had to preserve this symbolism. Do you think it has been like occulted with the time, the
Oh,
true meaning of it?
for sure. I mean, occulted, I mean, that's the irony of any of this, whether it's, the runes or any type of occult knowledge. Is it's there for anyone who wants to look into it. It's available, but it's not readily displayed. It's not pop culture, right? It's not common knowledge or common sense. And that's the big thing. The runes, I mean, here we are on a podcast talking about the runes. You can learn if you want, but ask 98% of people, even, white people, they, I'm just going to make that comment because, it's kind of like this cliche to say white people don't have culture. That's because it's been suppressed more than most. It's been buried, it's been subjugated and destroyed and twisted and bastardized, because
Yeah,
the
the
Norse
Nordic.
people were some
Yeah,
of the most resilient and resistant and rebellious to the mind virus and monolithic thinking, which I believe the Christian mindset paved the way to government. It's all monolithic thought, centralized authority. It's just one is laying claim to your soul and is a centralized power and authority there. The next would, the other is just on your body.
yes. I mean, here in Canada, we still have places that we had the some of Vikings that they think went through the ocean and established camp in Canada, actually. And then
Hmm.
they rebuild it. They found the remains of the houses, and they rebuild by the old way, to show to people that there were like Nordic and Norse that came from. They were astronom. You know, they could uh like go into the seas and follow and find their way by the stars. And I think all these runes are qualities that we give to this is actually a projection of human qualities into symbolism. And all these the gods, they were pagans, so they believed into multiple polytheist
Hmm.
people beliefs. So they had a god for hunt. They had a goddess. The goddess tradition is there too. I think
Hmm.
it's Freya in this case.
Hmm.
Diana or Freya. I cannot quite put my finger
Freya,
on it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah,
As you said, there were many gods, but they weren't gods like we think of gods. And again, this is just another aspect of where Christian thinking has kind of polluted our mind and our perspective of things, is because it's the same reason the Norse people were so difficult to conquer. They actually understood natural law. They understood free will. They were sovereign as fuck. That's why they didn't bow their knee. And just in that same way, they didn't believe that the gods were just these tyrants up in the sky, ruling their lives and, hurling lightning bolts and stuff like that. That's a post-Christianized idea of what they believed. I don't subscribe to that at all. These are, again, archetypes. They're cosmic forces that are very real. They aren't people up in the clouds or whatever. These are cosmic forces, and they understood that. And again, just the runes are in the very same way. They're there, and you could either resist them or deny them and have a really bad time, or understand, acknowledge them, and actually learn to use them, to wield them yourself. Because if you are aligned with natural law, you can align natural law to you, because your intentions are pure. This is how magic works. You can do dark magic, but you have to have things in place, because there's going to be serious blowback if you're trying to mess with people. Whereas if you're doing white magic and you're actually trying to empower people, help people, heal people, there's none of that shit. There's no karmic debt involved. There's no, collateral damage. You're in accordance with natural law. There's a key distinction there.
I like it very much. I have a question for you. If I want to study the runes more deeper,
Mm-hmm.
for the people who wants to get into it, because I think I'm gonna look into it very soon. Do you have a place where we can start? A book,
Yes.
a
I'd love to answer that. I think because we just have 2 runes left. I think can we just finish those last
oh,
2, and then we can kind of just
no problem. I
freestyle on
didn't
it.
know.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
know. That's okay. So that was Ingwaj, and we have 2 left. This one is Dagaj, which translates to day, day gaj, Dagaj. And it also represents luck. So you could think of it as the luck of standing in the midday sun. Imagine if you're living in Ice Age Europe and the clouds open up and you just get a warm blast of sunshine. You're feeling that that luck, that good fortune, essentially. And again, this comes from standing in the full light of your soul. This is that external expression of solar energy. So Sowilo is your internal sun. Dagaj is day projecting outwards. And the last rune here, Othala, which stands for, or it translates to inheritance. It can also mean land, but essentially that's the root, is inheritance. And think about it, it's the last rune. This is not just when a relative dies and you get some land. This is your spiritual inheritance for mastering the 24 runes. This is your final reward of becoming initiated, of being a spiritual badass, and having, the ability to work with natural law as your allies. And that's the ultimate inheritance.
Yeah. Well,
So
there's so
that's
so
it.
much good stuff that come from that. Natural law is
Absolutely,
very
man.
powerful.
It is, and it's universal. Like I said, you can find it anywhere. It may have different names, different symbols, but the forces are the same.
So, where we can get? Do you have a suggestion for an author or something like that? Where we can get our stuff?
Yeah, I learned a lot of what I know from Michael William Denny. Some may know him as the Thunder Wizard on YouTube. And I mean, to be fair, some of his newer work has been a little bit interesting, a little bit questionable, but regardless, his old stuff and specifically his work on the runes, also studying the Indo-European lineage, and how those parallels with the Hindu cultures, the Proto-Europeans. I think he's on point with that stuff. He's just kind of gotten into a little into the weird new agey fifth dimension alien kind of stuff these days, which, whatever, that's fine. But his work's still out there and it's still solid. For example, you can find this book here, Rune Shamanism, if it'll focus, on Amazon. There's also an advanced rune shamanism, and he's got some free videos on his YouTube. So if you just go to Thunder Wizard on YouTube and type in runes, you'll find lots of stuff there. But additionally, I just recommend trying to take in your knowledge from a good wide range of sources, because there's a lot of good information and a lot of bad information out there. I've seen videos on YouTube where I was just like, what are they talking about? Where are you getting this? Because it just seemed so off to me. And so, the more sources that you're pulling from, the more you can kind of cross compare and see what aligns versus what some random person is saying. You know what I mean? So those would be my two suggestions. I definitely learned a lot from him, but then make sure you're sourcing from a wide variety as much as you can. And then, of course, as we're probably about to get into, directly working with them, and then they will tell you, they will guide you, they will inform you, and you'll know from experience what they can do.
I mean,
what their effects are.
If they can be mixed with tarot and astrology and things like that, the work is like it's big,
infinite.
You can do you can study all your life.
Yeah, lifetimes worth is what I was going to say. Absolutely
fascinating. I mean, I was seeing these symbols in parts, bits and parts of it, but I didn't got really the message until I stumbled upon your video about this. I don't have the time to watch everything, obviously, but it was very interesting, and thank you, Logan, for taking your time and talk about this. I think it's very empowering for the people who got interested in that, and even the story behind it, because there's a whole story behind the cults and the people that were behind it and their story, and it's very we can see it like there's a lot of Vikings, Norse stuff that come out these years for some reasons.
I think there's a very good reason. I think people are starting to want to reconnect with their ancient past, to get in touch with their culture, to figure out where we came from. Again, so much of it's been buried and obfuscated and just bastardized in other ways, putting a Christian lens on it. That's one thing that concerns me. I see a lot of pagans, modern, in these groups and stuff, and they're just thinking like Christians. They're just putting a new label on it, and they're like, what's the book where I can learn how to be a pagan? Like it's a Bible or something. Or, they're just applying the same exact thinking to, and actually, for anyone who may go check out my channel and subscribe and hit the notification bell, here in a few days, I'm going to be dropping a video on exactly what is paganism from my perspective, of course, and kind of being very clear on what it is and what it isn't. It's kind of one of those, like, it's ironic, or kind of a dual aspect, because think of it like freedom, right? You can kind of try to define what freedom is, maybe by its attributes, but to say driving a car, that's freedom. Eating ice cream, that's freedom. But you'd be here forever trying to define freedom that way by describing all the ways that it can be. It's easier to say what it's not by any kind of violence, right? And so there's certain fundamental things that make it not paganism, and there's certain fundamental aspects of what it is, but how that actually shows up is up to you. And that's part of what it makes it that is it's a personal journey. It's different for everybody. And no one has the right. I mean, that's more Christian bullshit of trying to tell someone else what their spirituality is.
Mm.
It's each individual. That's we all manifested here to walk our own path and be sovereign on that path.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the basic, actually. It's when you realize that you're doing it wrong, and you need to change it, and you have the will and the care to change it. It's not easy, There's no optimal way to do it. You're gonna take your own responsibilities, and it's all about that.
Right. You got to go deep within yourself and root out the bad programming, because I had to do it myself, and I'm still working on it. It goes so deep when you're indoctrinated, when you're raised from a young age as a Christian and as a statist. It goes so deep into your core beliefs about yourself, about the world, about other people, about spirituality. There's always new things being brought to light of like, wow, that's totally wrong, and you have to be willing to rethink that and constantly rooting that stuff out and shifting your perspective on it.
I mean, I've listened, and you talk about the Christianization of the ancient world, and there's a good movie that I suggest to everyone. I think you can find it on probably one of these streaming services. It's called Agora, and it's the movies that show, well, they dramatize this. They maybe got inspired by the destruction of the Library of Alexandria and the cult of the ancient world. They were an attack from Christians at this time, and you had all these philosophers and these Egyptian worshippers at the time. They were worshiping like Greeks and Greece god and Egyptians and things like that. I think people just need to go and look at this movie, because it's a terrible story. It's horrible what happened, but it has so much meaning, and you understand why this world is like that.
I have another great resource if anyone's into reading. I know that's not as popular these days, but a very good book is called The Darkening Age by Catherine Nixie. That book is incredible, and it goes into depth about the details of the atrocities of Christianity when it was first
Unleashed.
unleashed, forcing itself violently and brutally upon the world and upon pagan cultures abroad. That'll give you a really good perspective on that.
What's the name of the woman?
Catherine Nixie.
I'll have to go back, because you talk about a gentleman. I took the name of the books, but I will need to come back for that.
Michael William Denny.
William
Thunder Wizard.
I have the name there. I have to look it. So I think we're an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay.
Do you want to bring something else before we go?
Yeah, I would love to just end on a way that you can start working with the runes. And again, that's why I can't emphasize enough, working with them personally, getting that firsthand experience, because they will teach you more than any book and what they're capable of. So if you want to learn how to do that, go to thewizardfactory.com. At the very top of the homepage, there is an initiation package. It's free. You just have to sign up with your email. And I have a free course. It's like over 2 hours long. I really, I shouldn't be giving it away for free, but I just want to give people these basic tools. It teaches you how to cast the Circle of the Magi, which is your sacred space to do your work. It keeps you protected. It's a boundary inside. And there's some breath work. There's actually a guided breath meditation in there. And then a couple of energy practices, as well as how to do Rune Galder, which I mentioned earlier. So this is a way that you can, it teaches you how to work with the runes individually. And you can take this and basically just go one at a time. Start with Fehu, and you can pick your own, plot out your own time frame. If you want to do just one rune a day, if you want to spend a couple days on each one, it depends on how long you want to commit to it. But if you do one a day, it's only 24 days. It's like a 30-day challenge. Anybody can do that. And I guarantee you'll feel some amazing powers when you work with each one individually. You're working with those seed sounds. You can write them, as you're chanting them. You can have something written down so that or use that symbol in your mind's eye, visualize it as you're speaking it. These are all different ways that you can practice that, but definitely recommend go check out the initiation package. There's a ton of value and really useful, instantly applicable tools that you can get into.
What's the name of the website so people can go do it?
Thewizardfactory.com.
So thank you again, Logan. I
pleasure,
appreciate your time, man. Thank you very much for that. And
Absolutely.
thank you people who were there. There's always the usual people, and I appreciate you guys. You always have a good flow of questions and comments.
Great
Thank you very
engagement.
much.
Thanks
Yes.
for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm very passionate about this topic, so I hope I shared something useful. You'll make sure, again, like the video, subscribe down below. And thank you, Fred, for having me. It's been a real honor and a pleasure, brother.
So actually tomorrow I'm having a podcast with François Chartrand about it. This is gonna be the English version that we're gonna do about Urantia and cosmology and the exploration of the channeling, and it's gonna be awesome. So I suggest everyone to go be there just for curiosity. It's fascinating. So thank you everyone, and we'll see. Oh yes, I forgot about this. We have the table discussion. I don't know if it's gonna happen this week, but every Friday at 9 p.m. for now. So be there too. I don't know if it's gonna happen this week, but it's happening almost every week. So have a good night. Bonsoir tout le monde. À la prochaine.